Hello, my name is Brian Dossett. I'm just doing a little bit of training on the bag. I'm in the garage at the moment. Sorry. I've had an implant on my tooth. As you can see, I've got no tooth in the front there, so I've had an implant. I've got to go back to have it done. You might wonder, I mean, I'm not bad, I'm 81 years old, so I ain't bad, the first tooth out, and it wasn't a bad gum, and I think it was just a loose tooth, and he said the roots are a little bit loose and gone, so I've got to take it out. They done it. But it's funny because my wife was actually, I was looking at Facebook, and I'm no good at all this Facebook and all this email stuff, but I was looking at, and on the side there, you've got your messenger and you've got your something else. Well, they had a load of women sending me their pictures and their bodies and all that. Not for me, really. Used to be. But she come in, didn't she? And she see me. She said, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm just looking at all this. I don't know where it all come from. And she looked at it and she said, you dirty bugger. And she smacked me, boom, right on the movie there. Right there it was, a good punch. I've been in a lot of punches, a lot of rings, but not like that one. That was a smacker one. So if there's anybody out there that because we're talking about a coach, this lesson is all about what is a coach. And so if anybody knows out there, anybody good coaches that can teach me some ducking and diving or some blocking, I'd appreciate it, alright? Anyway, here we go. You have to forgive me because I've got this bit of a cold going. I should have done any training ready, but here we go. Well, like I say, my name is Brian Dossett, and for over 60 years I've been coaching. All over the world, all over the place. But are coaches overestimated, or are they underestimated? Are they something special? It's a very difficult subject to understand. Are they special? What is, would you say, who was the first coach, in your opinion? Who was the first coach? We can't duck and dive from that one because we've got to find out whether that was done ancient years ago, times ago, or whatever. Who was the first coach? Are they underestimated? Are they estimated? And are they necessary? Who was the first? Who assessed that first coach? Who assessed the first coach? Who assessed the assessor of that coach? And he goes right back. Are we born the coach? Were we born the coach? That's quite interesting because it is a natural tool. But does it come from some kind of a beginning? Well, it has to. It has to start from somewhere. Everything has to start from somewhere, and that includes a coach. So, I'll challenge anybody to look at my lesson 20, by the way, because that lesson 20 is a good one. It's quite long. You'll need to have a little, treat it as a book, because it's all about the beginnings of the beginnings. It's not religious and nothing, but it goes into how the universe started and how the first beginning of the beginning started and how we all started and what come from that. So it's a good one. 20. It's not done yet, I'm still doing it. It's taking a long time. It's all about the beginnings. Now, the challenge is on that one, on that channel, that chapter 20, lesson 20 rather, is to start with me and to end with me. That's the challenge. I'll challenge you for that one. No ducking and diving. Now we all recognise a coach is a teacher. And that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm actually coaching you, I hope. We also recognise that there's different levels of coaching, different levels of different activities. Now, notice what I said. I said recognise. We recognise, are there different levels or different activities? Yes, we recognise that. That word's very important because it relates to both the realities, but it's interesting really because it's what we recognise, not what other people recognise, and that's interesting by itself. Or do we take everything for granted? Are we magnetised into a lifelong habit without realising it? Interests, activities of all different levels that attract us. But is it possible to become a coach? Coaching is natural. Is it possible for us to become our own coach? Finding out our own standards, methods to live by? Life itself could be our school, our college, our university. We could be our own college, our own university. Who created them? Who created those who created them? We never consider ourselves as teachers, really, do we? Or coaches. We never do really consider ourselves as one of those. Because teachers have to go to school to learn how to teach. A lot of us haven't got diplomas and certificates, and that is what teachers, I think, need to show who they are to other people. That's the reason for this lesson, to make you think how you can become your own teacher without a qualification or diploma. A coach assesses other people, so why can't a coach assess themselves? Assessing yourself, because you might not realise it, but you might be cleverer than you think you are. Or you may be. You may shock yourself and surprise yourself. It happened to me, so I can speak from experience. Lots of experience, over 60 years. And that word experience is one of the main points of this lesson, because it challenges the word's qualification. Our parents, for example, they learn from their parents and we learn from our parents. So that's all based on the standards and the rules, the guidelines that we are all forced to survive with. Sometimes we have to adapt them and change them to perfect our knowledge, to slot in with the times. We share our experiences with others as they do with us. That's what coaching is all about. I've got a wasp here somewhere. A bit early for wasp. So what do? We all teach and learn from each other. That's a natural thing. What we may do, others may copy us. And what others do, we might copy. Learning and sharing is within all of us. We do it all the time. But does sharing mean coaching? Does it mean teaching? To share what you have with others means you give. They take. In turn, what you share, they give. You take. You give, they take. They give, you take. It's teaching, surely. You're teaching each other. You're learning off of each other. The person that you gave what you have to can perfect what you gave them. That's something else we never consider. Your idea that you give to some other people, they might perfect that idea even better than you. So it becomes better than the founder, better than the tradition. Dodgy word that. What you gave may have been a traditional way, the old way, an old method. Here goes again. I'm going to catch him in a minute. What you give could have been a traditional or an old way and an old method, but that tradition, that old way, that old method, may become more modern to slot in with the needs of the times on that day or that period. That brings me to the wants and needs. Another two tiny little words that we seem to take for granted. Now, many traditions still want modern minds to stick to tradition. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, many traditions, they still want to be traditional, but they want a little bit more modern in it. So there's no wrong with having both. Don't forget tradition, because that is your basics. Without tradition, there'd be no modern. Without people trying traditional ways of flying in the air, we wouldn't have the aeroplane today. Or, like you're doing now, you're looking at me, I'm looking at you, there's a bit of technology there. It's only little, but that couldn't happen years and years and years ago. Now, let's stick to that for a little while, the traditions that want modern ways. Do people want that? Do they like change? Rather than the old generations wants, every generation experience the needs. It don't take a qualification to recognise that reality. No qualification for that. And we've learned that. You've either learned that just now when I talked to you, or you might have learned it anyway, but knew it anyway. But someone had to teach you it, or put it on the table for you to look at, for you to make a decision. So you make your own decision, you become your own teacher. You learn and you teach yourself. So this lesson is going to be a mixture of relating to wants and needs, qualifications, experience, realities. All that is all going to be jumbled up to find out what is a coach. What's not recognised may work. What's recognised may not work. We can only learn more from experience. Experience works rather than a qualified people. So you can have a qualified person who's got all the certificates under the sun, and you've got one person who hasn't got a qualification at all, might be better than him because of his experience. We don't know yet. Okay, I am highlighting tradition and modern thinking. And in these modern times, everyone goes by qualifications rather than experience. It's a natural thing. Are you qualified this? Are you qualified that? Have they got that bit of paper? Have you got a bit of paper? Oh, I don't want you then. But it could be wrong to rule out experience. On the other hand, they might have both. If they've got both, okay, no problem. Or is there a problem? Would that person who's qualified and experienced, what would he say? I rely on my experience, or I rely on my qualifications. Think about that one. Because we're all good at some things and bad at things, but how did we learn that? Did it come to us through experience, or did we read about it and we had to go and learn about it? Which is best, or is there a best? But those who have got the benefit of those both worlds, okay, fair enough, you've got the advantage. But it's common knowledge that we only think that we have to become a coach or a teacher by going to a college or university. That's common knowledge. As kids, we go to our schools to learn from those individuals who attend who go to colleges and universities and become teachers, and we go to them particular people to learn the things. And even our parents, during this epidemic, they've been trying to teach their kids at home, and they realise that teaching ain't easy. There's a skill in it. But they're still teachers. They're parents. Parents are teachers, but at a different level. And that's all experience. They didn't have to go to school to learn to become a parent. It just happened through the years. So to become a qualified teacher means special studying at college and universities. Special studying. Not every study. Special. To go into it a bit deeper and how to put over what you know. How to put over what you know. Have you got to go to college to do that? Or is it part of your personality to do that? But that takes studying a particular subject, one particular subject, for years. So to become a senior coach, they can go further, can't they? They come to a senior person, a top person, with the IDs of masters or professors. And in turn, they put their mark and their stamp on your certificate. I've got a certificate from Ting Wang Tong or Tong Wing Bang or Mr. Smith or Dr. Wallop or whatever. Have you? Oh dear, that's good. It's only a signature from a human being that knows a little bit more about you or about what you're learning from them. They've studied that subject a little bit longer than you, and in a position to do so they should know more knowledge than you. But are there people out there that don't go to college that know that? Through experience? I don't know. But they have the ID, that recognised ID, professor, master or whatever, and in turn they put their stamp on your certificate which justifies that certificate as being true. But that also opens the doors for the juniors and the novices. The junior teachers to gain more experience, because those professors and masters had to start somewhere. They had to have a beginning, and they grew up, and over the years they become better, and then they were promoted to the positions they are in, and they then have to teach the people that they were once was. Beginners, junior and novice teachers. And those junior and novice teachers have to go out into the field of play to become a bit more experienced, to get experience. Not just show their qualifications, to teach or to coach. And that's the reality, to go in out on that playing field to show people what they can do, what they've been taught, and then and they've been taught how to teach, how to coach. Look, we've all been to doctors and hospitals, haven't we? And we can suss out the qualified juniors, and the more experienced ones. All qualified, but at different levels. But they're still teachers. So this is what we're going to come to in a minute, about the levels of the teachers. Have you got to spend years and years to learn one particular activity, to teach a little basic thing? Have you got to do that? Parents do that when they have their babies, by trying to teach their kids how to potty train their kids, and how to swallow their food without dripping it on their bibs and all that kind of stuff. My lesson 10's on that one. Lesson 10, good one. It's about kids, and young parents might learn from that one. Lesson 10 on Brian Specials. But we can suss out the juniors and the wasn't. But although everyone has to have a first time, that first operation has to be done by somebody first time. Would you like to have your operation done by a novice first time? He's going to do it, he's going to cut you open, or an experienced person? Think about that one. So although we all have that first time at the beginning in everything, but in reality we prefer to be assessed by a more experienced and qualified person than a new qualified junior, wouldn't we? That's for obvious reasons. But some of us, I'll give you a chance, Gordon, you have a go. You have a go at putting a knife in me. Woo! Dodgy. Well, they might be even better, because they might have learnt, the junior ones might have learnt more updated systems than the more experienced one. The more experienced one either be fresher, or they just stick as they are, and these new guys come along and say, no, I've got another way of doing it, and he doesn't know about that, the experienced one. So that leads to the individual. It leads to the attitudes and the personality and the characters of those particular individuals that are actually teaching or teaching you. Now, no matter what subject or activity of interest, attitudes and personalities and the characters all play a big part of coaching, whether we like it or not. Teaching. There's different levels of understanding each of the recognised instructors or the qualified instructors. There are different levels of understanding how they teach, which all of us have to assess ourselves. We are now the judges. We are the assessors. We are the ones that are saying, oh, yeah, I don't like the way you teach. Oh, yeah, I like the way you teach. We've got to be the judge according to our needs and not others' wants. What suits us? Who do we prefer? Now, we all have our favourites, don't we? We all have our favourites. Even when within our own family groups, we have our family groups, and there's certain people that we love in our family, but we might not like. Like my son Stephen. I love the man. I'd die for my boy, but I don't like him. I don't like the things he does. I don't know the way he likes the way he has his haircuts. I don't like his attitude, but I love him. But this is all part of the characters. That's his character. It's a part of the character I don't like. But as Stephen Dossett, the person, he's my lover boy. I love him because he's my son. And that goes with all my family. I love them all, but I don't like them all. That might be difficult to understand, but it's true. If you look at it yourself, you're in the same position. You have the same feelings whether you like it or not. Don't hide it. Don't duck and dive from it. You do. Now, they may have habits you don't slot in with your standards, so that's why you don't like them. So you teach and coach yourself to do what has to be done. You need no qualification for that, which brings me to the next point. Does everything need a stamp? Do I need to stamp you to say, oh, you're good at that, you're a bomb? Does it need a stamp on a piece of paper or certificate or diploma or qualification? Now maybe someone with a vast experience in a certain activity, certain interest, has enough knowledge to be a coach, a teacher, because you can't buy experience. You can't purchase experience. So there are people out there with vast amount of experience on a subject and become very good at it that sometimes they don't know at college and universities even. Now that has to be earned, which takes years. So who could be the assessors for that one? Who could be, you're not qualified. But how do you know I'm not qualified? I'm qualified. So you watch me. Put it in front of me. Ask me to do anything, I'll do it. And I bet I can do it better than you. And I'll bet you can show you other ways you can do it that you haven't learned. You don't know about it, Mr. Professor. Think about it. Because there are people out there like that. Coming to that later. So taking everything into consideration, no ducking, no diving, just taking the realities as they are. If something new, exciting, that works, this is safe, everyone is protected and can be proven, all the safety aspects can be proven, all the risk assessments can be proven, and everybody likes it, what procedure could be taken to keep it legal according to the laws of the land? And this is what we're up against, the laws of the land. We have to make sure that we abide by the laws of the land, but sometimes the laws of the land aren't much cop, are they? They're all confusing themselves. Who created them? Who assessed what was good and what was bad? Who assessed them that assessed them? Goes on and on and on, doesn't it? But what procedure could one take if something is real good and everybody likes it, it's safe, it's got all the legal requirements according to the laws of the land, the insurances and all that kind of thing, which in itself has to be questioned. Is there a relationship between law and justice? Is there? Is there what kind of relationship is there between the law and the justice? Not a lot, is there? Not really. We see people going to court, or should go to court, and they get let off. That's not justice. It's the law that they was examined and they was assessed by 12 people and a man with a wig on, and they got let free, and everybody knows that they were guilty. How can that be justice? So there's no relationship between law and justice as far as I'm concerned. My opinion. So that leaves everything in limbo land, doesn't it? Which may be the reason we need qualifications and experience together. And that's where we get stuck in the wilderness of confusion. Everybody does. It's leaving us all to be our own assessors, judging and choosing what suits our needs. But then there would be no order. There'd be no order at all. I'll go with a quick cup of honey. I've got to be careful because I must have something hot. That's nice and warm. Blackcurrant and honey. So we must have order. So how can that be controlled? How can we put order into this wonderful new activity that's not been seen before? Everybody likes it. It's safe and everything above board. It looks good, but it needs some kind of order. So who is put in place to put those orders into action? Well, they're known as the governing bodies. People that govern you, to tell you whether you're good enough to do what you're doing. But even they had their internal battles and issues, which resulted many, like me and other people, keeping their distance from them. Oh, we don't like you bunch, because, you know, something dodgy going on there. So the problem was, it was the governing bodies who decided to dish out the qualifications. No problem with that, as long as it's done fair. And everything is taken under consideration. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Oh, we know that one, don't we? So the doors opened the governing bodies for dictatorship, money-making schemes, government grants being abused, and all those that was in responsible positions became gods, sat in their little god seats. I am on the governing body, I'm on the committee, and all that kind of rubbish. But who assisted them to sit on the higher places? We know that we have to vote in the government, and it's a majority vote for that, blah, blah, blah. But how was all that done when a governing bodies was created for all the different kinds of things? Who assisted them to sit in their high places? Or was it? It's not what you know, but who you know took over. We all know about that one, don't we? It was those who decided who was the right person to be qualified. Oh yeah, I'll put a word in for you. You know, I know him, and I'll give you a few. I'll pull a few strings for you. Blah blah blah. And there they are sitting on there. Oh, I'm on the committee. People don't like me saying that, but sorry, I'm Brian Dossett, and I say it as it is. If you don't like it, shame. For example, MAC. That was called the Martial Art Commission. I'm just using this for an example because I was involved with this, so I do know what I'm talking about. For example, the Martial Art Commission. Let's just use it as an example. They were responsible to control the martial arts of the United Kingdom. Loads of new ideas come over. Martial arts come over from the eastern to the western, and it was exciting, and all the myths and all that stuff was going on. Everybody was jumping on the bandwagon, and everybody was getting in. Oh, this is all new. I like this. And the government said, all the sports council said, whoa, I don't like this. We've got to. There's a flood of new things coming in that we've got to control. We've got to deal with this. No problem with that. No issues with that at all, as long as it's done fair and it's done right. So they created a martial art commission. Now, for example, let's take like karate, kung fu, taekwondo, and all those kind of things. Oh, by the way, you've got to keep judo out, because judo wasn't recognised by the Martial Commission. It was recognised by the Sports Council as a martial sport, as a sport, not a martial sport, a sport. But it was a martial sport, so it must have been a martial art. But we come to that later. But they were not involved with the Martial Art Commission. They was under the control of the Sports Council, who had their own judo governing body, which we come to later. But again, that's where it gets confusing. I would have thought judo would probably been one of the first to be a member of the Martial Art Commission, but it wasn't. So there you have it. Who were these governing bodies, these wonderful people sitting on the seats? Why didn't they notice that? Well, a poor little old man like me noticed it. Why couldn't they notice it? These educated, wonderful university and college characters. Maybe they got too much knowledge up there, they forget about the simple things. Maybe. But these people, that there they were on this committee controlling the martial arts from all over the United Kingdom, not Europe or international, just the United Kingdom. There were no seminars, no college universities for martial ways, no coaching courses. So how do they create instructors? Who were the instructors? Before I went into them, I was branded as a cowboy, an outcast, a rebel. Yet they never assessed me, but they already branded me as all them things, because I wasn't with them at that time. And one person turned around and says, "Oh, Brian Dossett, he's a law to his own." Yeah, because I had my own thing going and it was very successful. What, was you jealous of something? Was you envious? Was you a frustrated failure in your own little thing? And now you're on a committee telling other people what to do? I wonder. But how can you assess anybody if you never see them? Stupid, isn't it? How do they know what I knew? If you didn't slot in with their wants, their ways, you're out. If you slotted in with what they wanted, you're in. It's not what you know, it's all you know. And the Sports Council failed in recognising the fact that these people that were being chosen to represent martial arts had to be martial artists themselves. So they had to go around the forest looking for the trees they wanted. And they picked a few trees that would control the forest. That's all it was. It's that thing again. I got in that time. No, I didn't. Got to learn some blocking. Got to learn some catching. I've got to learn some attacking. Anybody coaching out there, let me know the names, or I'll join them. So, if you didn't slot in with their wants and went their ways, all contact of the governing premises, all the sports centres and all the schools were notified saying if you've got anybody going into your club, your premises, applying to you hire your hall, don't let them do it. If they haven't got the MAC stamp, they're not qualified. I'm not qualified to teach what I know, I've been doing for years, because the governing body says I'm not good enough, but they don't know because they haven't seen me. Because I haven't got their stamp to show the sports centre that I want to go on, I'm not allowed to hire it. There's thousands of people like me doing their wonderful jobs in the martial art world. So you couldn't hire the halls. They forced us to hire church halls and private halls where they had no control over. So the little church halls and the private halls become quite busy with martial arts. They forced us to hire the church and the private halls, so their attempt failed. Didn't work. They could do nothing about it. So how could the MAC, Martial Art Commission, assess what they never see? Who assessed them to be the assessors? Who were they? There were some great martial art clubs everywhere, all over the place, with great martial art instructors everywhere, all very successful in their own way. But the only qualified stamp required to run a club was if you had a black belt. Oh my God. If you got a black belt, you're an instructor. Being a black belt don't make you an instructor. I'll repeat that. Being a black belt do not make you an instructor. What can I say about that? Well, put it this way. I know of quite a few intermediate martial art grades, the blues and browns, and coming up to the black belt, but in the middle stage, and they were left to teach other students while their instructor was absent or had to work, and they did a great job. In actual fact, sometimes they did it better than instructors. I was one of them. I couldn't do a club. I asked some people to do it for me, and I told my students, "What do you think? Did you enjoy it?" And I said, "Yeah, he's great. Oh, he's a good instructor, isn't he? He's a good instructor. He's only blue belt, but he was an instructor. Didn't have a black belt, but he was an instructor." Let's get that in our heads. Are we getting there? What is an instructor? They were coaches and teachers in their own rights without knowing it, with no qualifications. I also knew black belts who had difficulty making success out of their clubs. They just could not teach because they were just not good enough. They were good karate fighters, fantastic karate fighters, good jiu-jitsu opponents, exponents on the competition world. But when it comes to teaching a class, they were useless. They were boring. They didn't know what to do. They didn't enjoy what they was doing. And they said to me, well, what do I do? I've never done it before. I don't like this. And they're black belts. Second, third and fourth dans. Very good fighters, very good competitors. I said, well, my advice is don't do it. You're not made out to be a coach. You just carry on doing your medals and enjoy yourself that way. And leave the other stuff. Yeah, but how can I be taught by a blue belt? Well, why not? If he's teaching you something that you don't know, but I should know I'm a black belt. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. They might know a technique you show them. They might do it their way and create their own thing that you've never seen before. So don't underestimate students, because you don't know what they can do. Believe me. Give them a chance, like you had your chance. And these are the kind of questions that come to me before the martial art, before I went into the martial art commission. And it's very similar to football players, you know, because being an expert in football or in any subject don't mean you can teach that subject. Doing it and teaching it are two entirely different things. What is a coach? A coach is a person that can coach, and a competitor is a person that can compete. Sometimes you can do both. Great. But it doesn't mean that you can teach because you're an expert at it on the field. And that a pro football player would tell you that. Teaching football is difficult. Not being able to coach is frustrating if you are an expert, because you feel like you've been put down a bit. But assess yourself and be honest with yourself, and there's no harm in that. There's no harm in saying, "Oh, I'm no good at that. I don't like it. I can't handle that." And just carry on what you're doing. And the other person that can handle it might be thinking the same about you, saying, "Well, I'd love to fight like that. God, dear, how the hell does he do that? Oh, I haven't got the guts to do that." You got your competitor, and you got your competition man, lady group, and you got your other groups. But it's all part of understanding what a coach is. It's not difficult to understand. Not being able to coach don't stop them from showing themselves on the pitch. It's that simple. Now, I know of football and boxing coaches have their standards of their own coaching levels, their own standards in their activities. Not by any governing body. They create their own rules and regulations according to what they're doing and how they feel it should be done. They are still coaching using those rules, self-made rules, and it's very safe, no problem, no issues, very successful. So why do the governing bodies knock them? Because they're not in the governing body, that's why. Senseless. So why did MAC organise some form of coaching qualifications equal to the other sporting activities? It would have been much, much easier for them to do that, and it was my suggestion when I went in. It would put the martial arts on the same level as the other sporting governing bodies, the same levels. So I had my own self-created coaching levels, and that proved to be successful, with the help, of course, of other experts who are in the field of administration than me, because you do need administration when you come to create some kind of a syllabus, some kind of order. But I was successful in that field. Now, something I put to the MAC when I was in membership, they had to accept me in the end because they could see that I had a big membership and a big following, and a few people started to look at me and say, oh yeah, he's not bad, this bloke, not bad, this bloke. So yeah, because they knew that I could do the job. And they had to accept me. One person said, let's get Dossett in. Rather than have him outside the house, uncontrolled, let's get him inside the house so we can control him. But they was dealing with Brian Dossett. Well, that idiot was anyway, and he soon found that out once I was in. Because I wasn't going to be no pushover just because I joined them. I was going to have my say or not stay. Simple as that. So, something I put to them was, during my membership, is why don't you create a coaching course for all martial arts? Not just one martial arts, it's just a general basic qualification on health and safety and all the little bits and pieces that you can get from the other governing bodies as well. And they done that. So they discussed it rather, they didn't do it. And then they come out and said, no, we're not going to do it. Mr. Dossett, don't rock the boat. That's what they said. So there you go. Don't rock the boat, Mr. Dossett. You just come into the governing body. You're just one of the members in the governing body. We've got, you're not on the committee, we're on the committee, so you do as you're told. Dictatorship, again. But they feared what? They feared me disturbing them of their little nest of power. They had a little nest of power that they didn't want to move about because it was working for them. They was giving what they wanted and not what the students needed. And the students, that was the black belt students, needed some kind of a qualification that was equivalent to the other sports. And that qualification would not interfere with the methods they were teaching, their own syllabuses in karate, kung fu, taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, whatever. That was in control of the actual style itself. And they had their rules and regulations and policies. No problems with that. But they would fear that their little nest would be disturbed. So, who assessed it then? And I started to ask that question. Hang on, you're saying we can't do this, we can't do that. Why? Who are you to say that? Why don't they put it to the whole groups, all the leaders of all the, not just 5 or 6 people, but the whole groups? Then they said, oh, we get a subcommittee, and then the subcommittee will go and get all that information and come back to us. And then that subcommittee did that, and guess who the subcommittee was? Chosen people by certain people. Not what you know, it's who you know. So I complained about that. They said, well, no, you're rocking about, well, we get another subcommittee for that subcommittee, and another subcommittee. I said, oh, you're talking a lot of rubbish. Why don't you just get a few of the people in from the other sports, have a chat with them, see how they do theirs on the safe and healthy and the risk assessments and all that. And also on age groups and different characters of students and different characters of everybody else. and just put something together. It's so simple. I could do it. I've got one. I've got one that you can use. They've been successful over the years. I've got one for the kids. I've got one for the juniors. I've got one for the adults. I've got seniors. One for the ladies. I've got one for them all. Oh no, Mr. Dossett, we're not interested. They're not interested. Somebody like me going in new, giving them some new ideas because they are too old, traditional fashioned, and they don't like change. So I just carried on. There was an Aikido guy, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he was in charge of, he was the officer who was the Aikido assessor for all the Aikido groups in the MAC. I was an Aikido, so because when I went into the MAC, I'll give them a big problem, because they said, well, okay, we'll accept you, but we don't know what governing body to put you in. So I said, well, I don't really care who I go in, if I'm in. I said, well, you're not karate, you're not kung fu, you're not taekwondo, you're not jiu-jitsu, you're not judo, you're not blah, 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 blah. He said, what are you? I said, I'm all those things. I beg your pardon. I said, well, I'm all those things. I've got a bit of karate, I've got a bit of everything in there. From my experience in the merchant navy, my experience as a street fighter, my experience as a boxer, and my experience as a karate guy, I've done it all. What grade you got? I said, well, what grade do you want me to have? Test me, find out. Well, what grade are you? I said, well, whatever grade you want me to be. I said, find out. You know, you get his judo guy on the mat with me and I'll do some judo with him. You get your karate guy and I'll do some karate with him. Depends what style you want to do, you know. You get a jiu-jitsu guy in there, you name it, I'll play with him. And then judge me on what you see. Don't judge me on what you think I am, judge me on what you see. And they all started to ruffle their shoulders and not know what to do. So I said to this Aikido guy, well, what are you then? How is it that you are the Aikido representative and telling people whether they're good enough to be in the Aikido Association? I'm who I am. But now we go to who you are. Show me what you are. Get out there and show me what you can do. Because you do not represent the traditional Aikido for a start. You do not represent them. You only represent a break-off of them called Tamiki Aikido. And that's when I decided to get them. They said, well, what do you know about that? I said, well, Ushibi Aikido is the traditional Aikido. And Ushibi, Master Ushibi, he's a founder member, he had a student called Tamiki who broke away and wanted to turn Aikido into a sport, which you're doing. So you're not representing the traditional Aikido, you're representing Tamiki Aikido. You're not representing a martial art, you're representing a martial sport. Now, is this martial art commission in charge of the martial arts, or are they in charge of the martial sports? Or are they different? And I got them all worked up. Then none of them like what I was saying. So he did his best to sneak away out of that conversation. I knew what he was doing. He was ducking and diving, so I let him duck and dive. I didn't want to embarrass the man anymore. I know what I know, and he knew what he knows, and everybody knew what I was talking about. And also that included a jiu-jitsu guy. Jiu-jitsu is somebody who was in charge of accepting all the jiu-jitsu in the club. And he didn't know what to do because, and I got quite friendly with him. He said, but Brian, he said, well, why are you causing all this trouble? I said, I'm not causing all this trouble. All I'm doing is asking questions and trying to perfect a governing body and their ways. That's not causing trouble, that's perfecting the situation. Making it better than what it should be, or what it is rather. He said, I know what you mean. He says, but what jiu-jitsu do you know? I said, well, what do you want me to do? What is jiu-jitsu? He said, well, it's all different styles. That's so rubbish. That's what they call themselves. It's all jiu-jitsu. You know, everything's all jiu-jitsu. There's a big garden out there with loads of plants in it. It's still a garden, all different plants. Still a garden. And I'm part of the garden. Now, what you want me to do now, if you want to get jiu-jitsu out there with me, and we do a bit of jiu-jitsu, we do jiu-jitsu, but mine will be a freestyle jiu-jitsu. He said, what's that mean? I said, well, It's like judo. You're trying to get me on the deck, I'm trying to get you on the deck. And the best one wins. Simple as that. Yeah, but you'll start boxing and punching. I said, yeah, that's part of my jiu-jitsu. My boxing skills are part of my jiu-jitsu. How you can, not grabbles, how you can block a punch, and how you can get in there and throw and trip and escape from grab holds. All that's wrestling and all that. You've got wrestling in my style. You've got boxing in my style. You've got karate in my style. You've got kung fu in my style. You've got aikido in my style. You've got tai chi in my style. So that was the problem. So anyway, they all got together. The martial art commission said, look, we've got a problem here with this Dorset guy. Said, why? I said, well, we don't know what governing body to put him under. And I said, well, why don't you let me be my own governing body, which I'm doing now, successfully, and you've seen it. That's why you've asked me into the Martial Art Commission. You can see how successful I've been. And they said, well, we can't do that. I said, well, to make it easier to them, the nearest martial art in your Martial Art Commission at the moment that I would slot in would be jiu-jitsu. I've just spoken to the jiu-jitsu guy, friend of mine now, and he's the kind of person that I would like to go, because their stuff is very similar to what I do, although I do other things in addition to that, which they don't do, but it's out of all your martial art styles, that's the newest one. So anyway, I become a jiu-jitsu instructor, recognised with a diploma, with a stamp, from all these wonderful guys sitting on their seats who knew nothing about the jiu-jitsu that I was doing, but they was giving me their stamp to say that I am qualified to teach what I know that they didn't know. So who should put that certificate on there? Who should put that mark on there? No, I'm not interested in marks, not interested in it. But they have to be, because it's the law of the land. It's what we get stuck on. So all this went on, and it's all to do with coaching, because they was trying to demonstrate to me how they coached, and I was trying to demonstrate to them how I coached. And I was trying to say that you don't need a certificate to see what I could do. A certificate is just a justification to show the people what you can do. It's a label, it's a mark, it's nothing else. It's not a magical piece of paper. So they then carried on doing what I was doing. And I was with them for about 5 or 6 years. And I said, look, I'm getting out, because you're going on and on, you're getting worse, you're treating it like a business now, you're charging enormous grading fees, and some styles were saying, oh, you can't get that suit from that particular person, you've got to buy it from that particular person because that particular person was making a bit of money on that, and blah blah blah. And it was becoming a money making racket, and they knew it. Even the people on the committee had the little family units all controlling. They all did the little ways of getting in and keeping it all nice and safe under their control, and that was it. So we left. I said, time is finished, that's it, I'm finished. And a lot of people followed me. And the funny thing is, will come later, I said to them, well, I'll tell you what, it won't be long before you become your own enemies, because none of you want to listen. You all want to keep to the same idea. You got blinkers on, only one way, you can't open them blinkers. And that's what I said, so I'm off. You can't resign, we'll have to get rid of you. I've resigned. You haven't got rid of me. I'll beat you to it. You know, you couldn't get rid of me anyway without a vote. I said, but before you have that vote, I'm going. Bye bye. So I jumped in before they did what they wanted to do. They was trying to destroy my reputation. I wouldn't let them do it. But they wouldn't go on a mat with me, or in the dojo with me, or in the boxing ring with me, to prove how good they were and how bad I was. They couldn't do that, because they knew it might have gone the other way around, and it would have gone the other way around, because I knew who they were. And I was fit. I was in my 60s then, and so I knew what I was doing of. So we went back to what we used to be, being independent. and a lot of others did. And there was a lot of people that didn't go into the Martial Art Commission and remained independent. All very good friends of mine. So I had friends in the Martial Art Commission and I had friends outside of it, all coaching their way, not the MAC way. They didn't have any diplomas or anything like that. They just had a group of people going into the hall, learning something interesting, enjoying it, and it was great things going on and everything else, and it was fantastic, really good. And I'm 81 now. I'm 81 years of age and I'm still doing it after 60 years in the game. So I haven't done too bad, have I? And I don't think what I'm saying is a lot of rubbish, do you? I hope not. So all the old out-of-date certificates we had, because I had them and I've still got them in my dojo, but they still have their marks on them. Got them all hanging on the wall, looking at everybody when my new members come in and say, oh, come and look at my gallery and have a little look. And they're all on there, all who are qualified. They say, oh, you qualified there? So I said, and I always said to them, I wouldn't take a lot of notice of that. That's when I was qualified. I'm not qualified no more. And they said, well, what do you mean you're not qualified anymore? Well, I don't believe in qualifications. That's certificates. I said, I want you to believe in what you see me do on the mat, not what's up on the board. All right, because I can't do them things like I used to because I'm too old. I can't do the break falls I used to do, and punching I used to do, and kicking I used to do, but that doesn't stop me from teaching it. So they started to understand, oh, well, I've never heard it that way before. I said, well, that's the way it should have been before, and it wasn't. Because people didn't want it that way. I still use my old coaching methods, supported by my own certificates after assessing them. In other words, I have certificates, I give my students certificates, and that's all they are, certificates of grade, a label. That doesn't make them any better by having a certificate. If they didn't give them a certificate, they'd still be the same, but they wanted something. And in this world we're living in, it's all about the paper. Have you got the bit of paper? So I have to go along with that flow, but I don't charge enormous fees for it. I just do it to help the association survive. Years and years ago, I had a full-time job as a youth and community leader, so I had a good job, good salary, sick pay, holiday pay, and all that, and I didn't need to have money for what I was teaching them in martial arts. But then I become a professional martial artist, and then I realised then, oh dear, I'll have to up these prices because I no longer have just got to charge money for the association to survive. But I've got to put eggs in the fridge, and I've got to pay a mortgage, and I've got to look after my kids and feed and clothe my kids now. Or I've got to up it because now I'm a professional. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as what you charge them, they get a service for. You know, earn the money like we all do, but give a good service, and that's all I do. But I don't charge extraordinary fees like some of these people do. £150 for a grading. To get a certificate, a grading that lasts about an hour. For God's sake, come on, grow up, learn. So, I'm fair. Yes, I'm a professional. I have to make money for my living, to feed my family, and to survive. But I do it fairly. Everything, and all my instructors and all my students get a little bit out of that. I know the club instructor has to work hard to keep working. Sometimes they've got a full-time job, but they just want to have enough money for the club to survive, because they use their own club funds to do that. Some have tried to turn professional and failed and gone back to where they was because they find it's not easy. And I've helped them on that way. I said, well, you did try it and give it a try. It's not for you. You don't want it. Too much hassle, so don't worry about it. So, what kind of rules do you have to do to ensure that your students are safe? How do you sort all those things out? How do you qualify anybody, and what do you put on the certificate to ensure that the instructors and the teachers and the coaches are suitable for you? As the time goes by, it's important always to keep the doors open for experimentation. That bit's important, because that's how you perfect. New ideas, new interests according to the community needs. Examples. Let's have an example. There was very hard to give you an example, really. I know one. There's one where there was a need to create a basic coaching system for women's self-defence, based on an attacks on ladies within our area, in an area that I used to live in. They were very successful, and because they were so successful, they required more coaches, because there was more students. Again, a simple way to deal with it is to keep everything simple and allow your imagination to support your ideas. That's how the first martial arts started, by ideas and creating something and teaching it, and then it increased. You had to get more instructors, so you had to get rules and regulations for instructors to be able to teach the students, and it goes on and on and on, and that's how all activities started, and as they are today. We always go right back to the beginning again. Who is the coach? What is a coach? Who created the first martial art? Who created football? Who created rugby? Who created those ideas? Who made the rules for the players and the referees? It had to be the founder members of those particular creations. Somebody had to start it. I'm one founder member of what I started, but I started my stuff from tradition, from things I learned from tradition. So I don't knock tradition. People you say, oh, you're not tradition, you're not tradition. I said, don't knock tradition. I compare tradition. I can compare to tradition to modern. I don't knock them. Without one, the other. It's like a marriage. You can't have one without the other. So they try to pull you down sometimes. They haven't got a clue what they're talking about. But that doesn't make the founder member who created it the best. I'm not the best in spirit combat. Wish I was. I can't do the things I used to do. Wish I could. But I'm still the founder member, and I'm respected as a founder member, and I appreciate that from all my students and members. But I never allow them to treat me as a god. That's one thing I don't do. I can't stand that. I don't really like being bowed down to, really. You know what I mean? I just a little nod, and I'll accept it. I'll accept their respect and the way I do it. I mean, when I go to India, they give you so much respect over there. It's unbelievable, and they treat you like a god, really. But I'll keep my distance, and I'll go along with the flow, and I'll respect the fact that it's their way, and it's their way they want to show their emotions, and it's a lovable feeling between two people, and that's how I treat it. A communication between two people, me accepting their way, them accepting my way, and we make harmony together. And that's how it should be. So, making the rules can be quite difficult for the activity. It's all part of coaching. When you're coaching, you have to say, well, I've got to coach this. How do I do it? I've got to make some kind of level from the beginning to the end. Bearing in mind, the end can become another beginning. But it doesn't make the founder the best of that activity, because others can also further what you created, which we spoke to earlier. Others can create and further what you created. For example, football. Football, as I think, was founded by England. Why is it that other nations beat us at our own game? Because they perfected it and made it better. That's why they beat us. No problems there. It's called competition. And competition is very, very healthy for the mind and body. We should all know that. Now, martial arts were founded by the Eastern countries. But now we've got Western countries beating them at their own game. What else can I say? I can't say no more than that. Because maybe we become better coaches than them in what their foundation is or was. Some foundations they created is changed in such a way where it's become a sport, and the art form has become the sport form. So the Martial Art Commission was the wrong title, wasn't it? The Martial Art Commission it should have been the Martial Commission, or the Martial Art and Sport Commission. So it's very, very difficult. Then, of course, there's martial art. People think martial arts as a martial sports is all about self-defence. It might not be. You might get people that have never done martial arts in their life would take a martial art black belt to pieces, spit the pips out. People don't like that being said, do they? But it's true. Now, some have issues turning traditions into sports. That is very, very important. I understand that. And I can understand why. Whatever they need to be a player is different to whatever they need to be a coach, or they could do both. So a system has to be set up for both of those things, one for the player and one for the coaches. So it's just standards and who qualifies those standards, who qualifies them to qualify others, who assesses the assessor again. Always come back to that. Now, some systems are better than others, but who assesses that issue? It has to be the results. People say to me, oh, how good you are. Well, let's go and find out. Let's go for a walk and find out. The results are 2 men walk in, 1 man walk out. You have to go by the results. But how do we do the result? How can we create them results in a sporting aspect? Well, let's take the BJA and BJC judo. Well, it is a martial art to most people, but it isn't to the martial art or the former martial art commission, because they didn't have judo. Judo was quite happy with being what they was doing and proving it themselves quite well, not having a governing body to control the whole of judo, because it was 2 separate things. You had the BJA and the BJC, which one was the British Jiu-Jitsu Association, and the other, I think, was the British Judo Council. I might have these the wrong way round. So colleges and universities are not the only places to show yourself off. You could do that through sports. And the judo world, they don't go to colleges or universities to become a qualified coach. But here we had the 2 different judo groups. Now, an unqualified but self-taught experienced teacher may be better than a qualified but inexperienced teacher. I'll say that again. An unqualified but self-taught experienced teacher may be better than a qualified but inexperienced teacher. Bit of a mouthful, that, isn't it? But if you have been involved with a mechanic, if you've been a mechanic involved with mechanics, with your head and hands in muck and dirt and oil for 5 years, but not ever attended a mechanical course in your life, and another person who spent 5 years on an official course and was qualified, that doesn't mean to say that one is better than the other. They might have different ways of doing things, but they won't be better than each other. So different ways doesn't mean better ways. It could be just different ways. And this is where the martial arts go wrong. Because all martial arts are good for their different reasons. Some want to be fighters and some don't. If 5 people was told to find their way to one destination, they might take different routes to get to that destination, but get to the same place at different times. It might take some longer, but it's still the same destination. If there was an assessor, who could he assess? Who was best driver? How long did it take him to get there? Now, if I had a Robbie Reliant, which I had once, don't laugh, and you had an MG, and we said, we're going down the Southend, see you down the Southend Pier, okay, see you at a park opposite the sea, right, okay. So he goes down there, he gets it, I goes down there. Now I gets down there and I sees him there, I parks by the side of his car, I said, oh good, I'm here. He said, oh, I've been here, I was here 2 hours ago, and he was in his sandwiches or whatever he wants to do. So, oh good, well done, you know, well, pats on the back for that, well done. He said, well what you took us so long? I said, well, what did you see on the way? He said, what? Well, what did you see on the way? Well, he just got on the motorway and I was here in an hour and a half. So, oh, good on you. So all you see was the motorway? Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I see. I stopped at a nice country pub. I was speaking to the locals. I had a nice pint of shandy. Had a few ham rolls, crisps. Looked at the sheep, the deer, the scenery. Lovely. In the sun. Enjoyed myself. Got in, carried on through all the country lanes. And I got here. And you got here before me. But what experience have you got? Motorway experience? That's really good. And he couldn't say nothing. He said, oh, that's the silly way of looking at it. I said, no, it's not. It took me slow to get there, but I learned or see more than you'll ever see on your motorway. So sometimes it's very important to get somewhere first by going the long route. You can understand that. A lot of people can't. But if there was an assessor who had to assess that, how would he assess it? Would he assess it on, oh, he got here first, he's went up? Or would he say, which one got the most experience? Well, put down what your experiences were when you're on your journey. Or would he assess it that way? He's the assessor. He's a coach. He's an assessor. He's a teacher. What makes a coach? Are you your own coach, or do you need a coach to coach you? Just saying. So, getting there slower, you may gain more experience. But they're all instructors telling you to do that. You're an instructor telling your student to do something, but they might want to do it their way. So sometimes it's good to leave it open and say, well, okay, this is the way to do it. Now, do the same technique, boys and girls, or mums and dads, and see if you can do it a different way. And you'll be surprised at what you come up with. You become the student, may become the teacher. People don't want to hear that. So it's very important, if you're going to be an instructor, you be an open instructor with an open mind. Those who get somewhere first doesn't mean to say that it's their time. For example, martial art gradings. Some people are natural, and one parent said to me one day, oh, how is it that little Jackie's got the same stripes as my boy, and my boy's better than him? I said, well, it's a good question actually, but it's a simple answer. Because your boy did it naturally, and he got the stripes, but that other boy is very slow in learning, and he worked so hard, worked harder than your boy to get to that grade, and that's why he got it. He didn't get it because he's as good as your boy. Well, if my boy's better, why didn't he get no more stripes? I said, why should he get any more stripes? That's his stripe, and he's got a stripe. He got his stripe his way, he's got his stripe his way. Got to the same place, but different times, different ways. Oh, she couldn't answer me. So there is what you have to put up with being a coach. Questions you have to answer, but you have to have the answers. You can't stand there like a dummy and say, oh, I don't really know. I say, oh, he's a good instructor, isn't he? And on the other hand, instructors don't know everything, and you've got to say that to your parents or whatever. It's, well, I'm not sure about that one. Like they say to me, well, what grade are you, Mr. Dossett? I say, I'm a grade, whatever grade you want me to be. It shuts them up. But there you are. But no one can remove all those years of experience, what you have, whatever the experience may be. So those who may be present with a qualification doesn't mean that they are better than somebody with experience. So we must understand that. Now, to finish off with, this is part one, I'm going to go on to part two later. but I want you to study that part one for a little while and re-examine your thoughts, re-examine what I've said, test what I've said, assess what I've said, and understand to be a coach is you are giving. They are taking. But if you give something and they take what you give, that is an honour. But then in turn, you've got to be in a position to allow them to experiment with what you give them and ask them, can you come back with something that I've given you, but in a different way? So you become a coach and you become a student. That's what a coach is, learning from your students. You holding your hand up and say, a student taught me that, and without me allowing him to do it, which makes me a good coach, I wouldn't be the kind of coach that I am today. Bye bye, see you in part 2. So Anthony?